Okay, guys. What's going on? It's Bree. Um, so, welcome to a Stitch and Bitch. For those of you who haven't done it, a Stitch and Bitch is a pretty, I don't want to call it traditional, but it's a well-loved uh, tradition of sorts among people who knit and crochet and sew a lot, where you sit around and just chat about what's going on in your life. In this case, I'm going to be talking about what's going on in my reading life and like what my thoughts are about things and what's been on my mind. But I've been wanting to do one of these since I saw Nicole over at Nicole's Adventures in SFF do her crafting circle, because that's immediately what it made me think of. Although I still need to get in on her stuff. I'm waiting for her to start her next book. I am working on a blanket, actually. I don't know if you can see that very well. It's going to be a granny square blanket. I've never done one of these. This is crochet. Um, but yeah, it's just a chance to talk. I really have been liking the idea of doing interactive stuff. I've been considering doing a podcast, but I don't know if that's not something that I've set in stone. And I'm kind of experimenting with the idea of this as an alternative to that, with eventually bringing on some folks who'd hang out with me while doing this. Maybe it's like a monthly deal. I don't know. Lots going on in the book world right now. Everybody's doing their beginning of the year kind of goals and resolutions, stuff like that. I think it's always interesting when we start out the beginning of the year, because one, I think everybody always like is really gung ho to start, which I love. But also I think that it brings out like the best in people. Like you really get to have an idea of who in your community is really trying to work on what. And, it's an opportunity to give people suggestions for ways to achieve their goals, and I like that. I just think it's a really positive deal. I did read this article though that I thought was pretty interesting. Rincey over at Rincey Reads, she posted it on Twitter, and it was this idea that um, the author of the article was talking about how she doesn't want to do any kind of like diversity challenge for herself or anything like that, because of a couple of different reasons, but largely because it's a way that people are making themselves feel good as opposed to actually making change. I thought that was interesting, and I know it's a fairly common feeling. It reminds me a lot of the discussions that we have about volunteering and volunteerism. If you're doing it to make yourself feel good, is that really achieving the end that you want, or is it a sense of showmanship? I don't know, just something that I thought was interesting. I'm not per se doing a diversity challenge this year. I still want to read more from outside the US and stuff like that. But we'll see. I'm not pushing myself too hard on it. Mostly my focus is going to be on using my library more. I unfortunately have to start paying back my student loans, and they are ungodly expensive. So buying books has become a little difficult. That started up this month, that I started having to pay them back and all that good stuff. So if you see a lot more library books, that's probably why. I don't know. Mostly I'm just trying to figure out what I want to do as far as new things, what I want to do with this channel, how I want to continue being involved in the community. If you have any ideas for things you want to see, you should let me know. I've also been thinking a lot about the Hugo Awards, which is probably not that uncommon. We're in nominating season, and I'm putting together my nomination list. And I don't know, it just occurs to me as I go through the kind of questions that I have and like the things that I think maybe we need to start reevaluating when we do our awards systems. Mostly, I'm really interested in this idea of self-publishing and publicity around self-published works and when self-published works start to get attention. So this year, or this last year, The Long Way to a Small Angry Planet by Becky Chambers was picked up by Hoterscape in the UK and I think Orbit in the US. My physical edition is the Hoterscape one because I was not going to wait once it started getting all those good reviews. And also the US cover is a lot prettier. And it in particular has made me think a lot about eligibility of self-published works and like the disparity in like publicity, marketing, and stuff like that. I don't know. It's a really interesting question because it seems to me that there tends to be a delay in when self-published works really take off. Like they take a significantly longer amount of time to really become super popular. Thinking in particular of The Martian, Hugh Howey's Wool, Becky Chambers, The Long Way to a Small Angry Planet. And this is, you know, I have a sample size of a very, very few, but it's just an interesting idea. I can't imagine being somebody who's doing a self-published work and like the amount of time and effort it takes to really get your book going. I mean, when I think about the difference between how you would have to market that and say Cameron Hurley, who does all of her marketing really in the 6 weeks before her book comes out, it's pretty astounding. And so it doesn't surprise me that books that are being self-published take a lot longer. I don't know. It's interesting, and I've been thinking a lot about whether we should do some sort of Hugo eligibility change because of that. You know, do you give self-published works an extra year? What happens when they get a publisher and a contract deal? You know, things like that I think are really interesting, and I think we haven't really addressed them yet. This is just one of those things that's come to mind a lot since we're doing nomination. That and I've been thinking a lot about when Wheel of Time was nominated. I know that's kind of silly. It was a couple years ago, but between that and Jim Butcher's Dresden Files, those long form works, I think we need to do something about. We'll see, I guess. I'm my yarn. There we go. I normally do this like crocheting and stuff when I'm listening to an audiobook. And so I like look exclusively at my deal and listen to the book. It's kind of fun. I like that. I've been listening to Abhorsen by Garth Nix on audio. It's narrated by Tim Curry, and I have such a soft spot in my heart for Tim Curry. Like, I have a like I don't. It's not like a crush per se, but it's definitely like an affection. I'm gonna see if I can pull up. I'm really playing with the settings on live stream for the first time. I've never hosted a live stream anything, and so the settings are actually really foreign. When you do a live stream and you're a guest, you don't see any of the control room settings really. And so I've never had the chance to play with them, and I'm trying it out for the first time today. Let's see here. There we go. I'm really nervous because I'm going to be hosting hosting Robert Jackson Bennett for an interview, and not this upcoming Saturday, but the Saturday after. And I would really like it to go smoothly. Um, you know, I mean, it's the first time I've ever hosted somebody kind of on my own, or being the person behind the controls, so to speak, and so it makes me a little nervous. I don't know. I'm so relaxed today. It's so nice. My apartment is a little bit of a mess, but not bad. Um, and I have the day off, so I'm going to spend most of it reading and just playing with settings. Like I said, trying to figure out how all of this good stuff works. My computer's also taking just a ton of time to load everything up. I just got a new computer and it does not like my wireless very much. I have Comcast as a carrier and they suck. They really are not pleasant. But that's okay. Back to Tim Curry for a second. If you want to have something that is narrated by him, but that's like really probably actually worth listening to, because of the Horson books, he narrates a version of Dracula, and I imagine that that's fantastic. I really like listening to my classics on audiobook, because especially with the like epistolary books, the ones that are like written in letter format, I think it just feels a little bit more easier to digest. So that's how I tend to listen to those. I listened to Frankenstein That Way by Mary Shelley, and I really liked it. Listened to Camilla on audiobook. All very good. I need to start like listing audiobook narrators that I actually like. Haven't done that yet. Oh, there we go again. Oh, I love these granny square blankets, but I've never made one by myself. I grew up with a ton of them because my grandmother was like a perpetual crocheter, and I didn't know how much work it took to like make one. And now all I can think is like, how did you do this for all like 12 of your grandkids? I don't know. Grandma's rock. I'm looking forward to this upcoming week. Partly because it's a short week. I have today off again. I've just said that. But also, I just have a good feeling. I'm going to be reading. I need to finish The Deed of Paxenarian. That's by Elizabeth Moon. And then I'm pretty open in what I'm going to read. I got the new Amy Shira Tatel. She wrote a nonfiction book called Breaking Chains of Gravity, and I have that on ebook as an e-arc. And I'm looking forward to it. If you haven't seen her YouTube channel, it's called Vintage Space, and she is pretty rockin'. Though I have a soft spot for ladies with a science love. Maybe next time I'll see if Thomas wants to join me, and I imagine he doesn't know how to to crochet. I think that would be funny. I'm gonna have to see if people will want to join me, because I think that would be just a ton of fun. I'm also going to be picking up maybe A Brief History of Seven Killings. We'll see. I'm feeling pretty fluid about stuff. I'm almost always a very much a mood reader, and I don't know. I don't know what I'm in the mood for, I guess. Because it's between that and I have a bunch of Terry Pratchett stuff, and I've been loving reading Terry Pratchett. I just finished up his Tiffany Eking books, and I love the hell out of them. They're so good. But we'll see. I don't know. And yes, granny squares do rock. They're super easy. They're a little bit of a mindless pattern, but I like that about them. I've never done a granny square blanket before, but I see the appeal. I also I feel a little bit like maybe Granny Aching would have dug the granny squares. But yeah, I've been wanting to read all of the Witches series after reading Terry Pratchett's Tiffany Aching series, mostly because I love Granny Weatherwax. Who doesn't love Granny Weatherwax? But I don't know. I don't know. I'm scared of being overzealous in them. I really like his works, and I'm scared that I'm running the risk of reading too many and burning myself out on them. So I'm trying to pace myself. And unfortunately, like, I don't really know how I want to pace myself. I don't know how I want to break it up, because my gut is like, read all of the Terry Pratchett, and it's probably, I mean, it probably wouldn't hurt me, but I don't know. I also, let's see, I'm sitting on my couch, and my list of books, or my big pile of books, is right next to me. I don't know. I do still have a Clark's World anthology that I probably should get to. I've been wanting to read more short fiction this year. And Clark's World seems like a really good, anthology and kind of monthly thing to have. I have their subscription on my Kindle, but I'm also going back and forth between that and Lightspeed. I just started following this Twitter that is a bunch of editors from like Lightspeed and Apex and Clark's World talking just about the short fiction that they like. Let me see if I can find the Twitter handle for that. And I really like that idea. I think the entire thing is pretty, like, that's a fantastic idea. Because if you're an editor, you see all of the stuff that people are doing, and you pay more attention. I don't know. I can't find it right now, but I'll put it in the down bar after the show. It'll be a little bit easier. It is super freaking cold outside right now. I don't know where you live. I live in the Northwoods, and come winter, it is just an icy hell. It's -9 out before wind chill. So if you live somewhere warm and you're blessed like that, wind chill, the wind makes it actually like significantly colder. Where my parents live, it's like -20 before wind chill. So I'm really glad to be inside today. I've been wanting to, I think after this, I'm probably going to download The Expanse, the TV adaptation, and try that out. I've got a friend who told me that it's great, but he hasn't read the books, and he's scared to read the books because he doesn't want to spoil the show. So I don't know. I should probably do that sometime today. I'm going over to his house to watch his daughter, and so that would be a sensible thing to do. I would imagine. And also I've been wanting to watch it. I have a bunch of friends who really like The Expanse, and while I've had mixed feelings about it, I know it is much beloved, and so I should, at the very least, watch the first couple episodes, see how I feel. I've been also wanting to watch The Magicians, but I haven't gotten around to that yet. I only have Netflix, and I have Amazon Prime, and so watching anything that's like just come out can be a little bit tricky. You kind of have to decide if you're going to bite the bullet and pay for it. And I'm so reluctant to do anything like that, but I don't want to illegally download things. Um, some of my friends are a little bit unscrupulous about that, but you know, I try to live by the book, um, or at least the law book, if nothing else. I do have Revival Volume 6 that I need to finish too, and I might try to do that this morning. Part of me wants to finish Abhorsen on audio, but I'm not in any rush. I don't know if it's that I am just out of the age where I can really appreciate YA or what's going on, but I don't know. It hits me like all of the characters feel really whiny, and I'm not really digging it. I don't know. It makes me sad because it's one of those things, like, I know I would have really liked it if I were 16, but at, you know, not quite 10 years later, it doesn't have the same appeal. Hey, Rachel, if you want to join me, you can. Um, yeah, so I don't know. I'm still figuring out what I'm going to do with the rest of the day. I really like the idea of doing something like this and having people join in. I think if it were like a monthly thing, it could substitute in a way for a podcast. And I really have been feeling, I really like the organic feel of a podcast. And I want that like natural change to conversation and topics. And it feels like you just don't get that with a regular video. When you're doing a regular video, it's like you sit down and you're doing a video about this topic. And so it just doesn't have that like natural flow to it. And I'd really like to do something that feels more conversational, that has a little bit of back and forth, that lends itself to a fluidity of thought. And this seems like maybe it will hit those notes for me. Again, I think it'll also help if I can convince some folks to join in, but we'll see. I need to switch my colors soon. I've got a white that I'm going to do a stripe of white, and then a big thick stripe of this purple right here. You can't see it very well, but it's like a lavender. So that's kind of the next step in this project. I don't know. What do you think? Do you find, I really like when we used to have discussion videos on, thanks, I'm glad you like it. I really like having discussion videos, and when you used to have the reply function, I think conversations were a little bit better. So you would watch somebody's video and then you could link to a video that you did responding to them. And so when you went through as a viewer and you were watching somebody's video, it would pop up with all of the responses to that video. So you could see the entire conversation. That feature for some reason is no longer on YouTube. And I really wish that it was. I mean, even if you're just doing a one topic video, I think that makes a lot more sense than how we normally do it now, which is like an RE colon and then copying somebody else's title to show that you're talking about their video. That is a function that I wish we had back. I don't know. But like I said, I just like fluidity in conversation. I feel like half the time when I'm filming a video, I'm talking about something and then my mind wants to go in a totally different direction that makes no sense if you're sitting down and watching a 10-minute video. And I don't know. I like, maybe it's just that I have like really random sporadic thoughts. Maybe, but I wish that there was something a little bit more, I don't know, a little bit more fluid and organic. Um, yeah. Like I said, the moment I saw that um, Nicole over at Nicole's Adventures in SFF was doing a crafting circle, this is the first thing I thought of when I was learning how to quilt. This is kind of the thing that would wind up happening is you'd all sit in a circle and you'd chit chat and gossip, right? It's a gossip circle. It's a quilting circle. People use that phrase all the time. Um, but I always thought it was really friendly. And, you know, when else do you really sit down for a good hour and just talk to somebody? Um, so I don't know if you're new to my channel when you're watching this, but I just finished a couple of different fairy tale retellings, which is not something that I normally read a lot of. And yes, Rachel, you should absolutely do this on the weekends with me. I'm not normally a big fairy tale retelling person. And so I read Six Gun Snow White by Kat Valente and I read Poison by Sarah Pinborough, which are very different takes on the same fairy tale, Snow White. And it was really interesting. I think reading them close together helped me to understand what it was that I like and don't like in fairy tale retellings, which is, I think they took two different approaches, right? Like Kat Valente takes the pieces of Snow White and she breaks them apart and doesn't bind herself to the actual plot structure of Snow White or the actual character structure of it, right? It's clearly inspired by Snow White, but it's not actually Snow White per se, as opposed to Sarah Pinborough, who her story Poison is very much an explicit Snow White retelling. The upside of hers being that she gives the original story a lot more context and a lot more character development, and I think I like the difference in that. I think maybe the problem that I have with it is when people mix the two, and so it winds up feeling like a fairy tale just plopped in a different spot. I don't know. I haven't read any Peter Panzerfaust. I'm going to have to look him up. The other fairy tale retellings that I've read, Genevieve Valentine did a story called The Girls of the Kingfisher Club, which retells the 12 Dancing Maidens in 1920s, like New York. I really liked that. And I don't know if it's maybe because I'm not as familiar with the 12 Dancing Maidens, or if it's just, I do think the quality of writing that Genevieve Valentine puts in that story is really, really good. And it might be a combination of the two that just made it really likable to me. It's not necessarily a very, like it's not a very magical retelling, if that makes sense. It's a fairy tale story that doesn't have a whole ton of magic in it. And that also might lend itself. Interesting. A Peter Pan retelling from Image Comics. I really like Peter Pan in theory. And I like some of what Jim Barry does with the original story. It's one of those stories that ages really, really well. And I'm never quite sure, though, how to feel about when people either pick up the story or try to redo it. So let's see, I think Brahm has the child thief. And I haven't read that yet. It's supposed to be really dark, so I probably will pick that up soon. Um, I have a soft spot for Hook, but I think maybe that's because I watched it as a kid, and also it has Robin Williams. I know they did a Peter Pan like play on Fox, um, and I haven't seen that either. Um, though that would be interesting. I heard it kind of flopped, but Peter Pan always makes me a little sad. Everybody always likes it because the kids get to go to Never Never Land and then they come home and it's like a happy ending. But I always thought it wasn't really a happy ending. Um, I don't know. Especially the movie when Peter and the Lost Boys just kind of go off in the enchanted, like, Hook's ship with the fairy dust on it. Like, where are you guys going? Yeah, like, you go home. Some that makes me. That's totally something my grandmother would have said. She'd have been like, "What are you doing? Just go home." I don't know. I'm trying to think of any other fairy tale retellings. I read Bitter Greens by Kate Forsyth. For somebody who doesn't really like fairy tale retellings, I read a lot of them because I feel like I want to like them more than I actually wind up doing it. Um, I don't know. And that was interesting. That's almost more like a historical fiction novel. It's split between this retelling of Rapunzel and telling the story of the woman who actually did write down Rapunzel, I think, for the first time. Um, and she wound up being sent to a convent by the French, like, court. And so that was interesting, especially when I read her footnotes at the end of the book and I realized that it, like, that part of the story is based on a true story. And I liked that, but I'm not. Maybe it's also that I like Rapunzel is not my favorite fairy tale. I don't know. But it was very pretty, very, very pretty. Um, I don't know if you have any suggestions for other fairy tale retellings. Let me know because I want to like them so bad. I really do. I'm gonna definitely be checking out that Peter Pan comic. Um, Other than that, I don't know. It's interesting because people really want to do stuff. So like Grimm and Once Upon a Time are both kind of like not quite fairy tale retellings. They're more in the vein of like fables, um, where it kind of mashes up fairy tales in the real world. And part of that I just find like not fun at all. Um, I have read the original Grimm fairy tales, or at least some of them. I was a big sucker for those, and reading the original write-downs of Hans Christian Andersen's fairy tales in high school, or at least the translation of Hans Christian Andersen's stuff. Um, and I used to really, really love them. Um, Speaking of which, if you want just a fun side mention of a fairy tale in a very different, not fairy tale kind of book, Hogfather has a little match girl in it. It's equally sad. It's not in the TV adaptation, but it's in the book where Death, dressed as Hogfather, sees the little match girl and feels bad for her. Poor Death. I always feel bad for him. He wants so badly to just love humans, and they just never love him back. Not really. I haven't actually read the Fables comic series. I tried to read the first volume, but I don't think it's for me. I don't know, maybe I'm just stodgy. That could very much be the case. Dan over at Geek Prawn Vlogs, he would have more to say about it probably than me. He reads more comics than I do to begin with. I don't know. Plenty of things I want to like so bad, and then I don't. Like superhero books, for instance. I want to love superhero stories. Not the biggest fan. Which is funny because, let's face it, most of sci-fi and fantasy is like basically the same story structure. I think there's something about the idea of magic in like a contemporary setting that just kind of doesn't do it for me. Isn't that? But that's not always true, even, because like I loved Neverwhere. I don't know. I guess it's probably also not as simple as me saying that I do or do not like certain categories of things. I'm almost near the end of this row. I start to get like a little crick in my wrist after a while. It's a lot easier for me to crochet than it is to knit because for some reason knitting just hurts the heck out of my pinky. I don't know. I do have, though, speaking of comic retellings, I have like the next 3 volumes of ODY-C to read. I've been holding on to them for like ever now. We're almost out to a new trade, and ODY-C is a retelling of the Odyssey, like Homer's Odyssey, in space with an all-female cast, which sometimes works and sometimes doesn't. It's also complicated as all heck. But I bought the first trade after reading all of the comics, like the single issues, and I'm considering switching over to just reading it as trades. It's one that, like, I keep thinking I should add it to my subscription bin at the comic shop. So when you go to the comic shop, you can do like a subscription. So comics will come out like once a month, and you can just say, hey, pull this for me, and just put it in a box, and I'll come in once a month and pick up my entire like list of comics that I wanted to read. I've been thinking about putting it on my subscription list forever, and I just haven't done it. I think when you do that, you run the risk of missing issues. Not such a big deal anymore because with something like Comixology, you can get a hold of back issues pretty easy. And my comic shop is always really good about restocking, but I don't know, maybe I'll just switch over to trades. It might be easier. I've been really enjoying it, but it is super complicated. And the idea behind it doesn't always work out as smoothly as it could. It's really pretty, though. I don't know if it's very explicit. Yep, I just opened it up, and that's definitely naked people. Okay. I don't know if I can find even an appropriate page to show you. Okay, a little gory, but that color palette is just, like, the color saturation on this is to die for. So I have like 3 of those I should read. I caught up with Paper Girls last night, which I've been really liking. And what else did I catch up with? Plutona. So those 2 I do have on my pull list at the comic shop. I don't know, any good suggestions for comics? I do have Bitch Planet starts up again, I think soon. It actually might have already started up. I think it started back up this past week or 2. And that's pretty good. Moon Girl and Devil Dinosaur I still have to check out. It's about a little girl who, I don't know, Buddies Up with Devil Dinosaur. It's a Marvel comic. It looks really cute. Amy Reeder does the art, and I really like Amy Reeder. I have that one through Comixology, so it automatically pops up. Dan just called Saga porno Romeo and Juliet in space, which is not untrue. I think if you like Cameron Hurley and you like Saga, I think you would like ODY-C. The storytelling still follows the structure of Homer's Odyssey, so it's still told in those like vignettes. And so sometimes it can be a little hard to follow. I think if you're familiar with the actual, actually Homer's Odyssey, I think it's going to be a lot easier for you to follow than if you're not. I like it. I've been enjoying it. And Elizabeth over at Books and Pieces has fallen in love with it, which makes me happy. Yes, so much dick shots in Saga. I'm really surprised that it's caught on as well as it has in like the YA community. That's just beyond me because, oh my gosh, how did any of your parents let you buy that? I don't know. It's always interesting to see what picks up there because I feel like it's never what I think it's going to be. Maybe kids just aren't as uncomfortable looking at porn as I would have been when I was like I never would have taken Saga out. Like I probably still would never take Saga out in public to read it, but like definitely wouldn't have done that in high school. I was really scared of, I don't know. It's true, they do mostly read preteen romance. Well, who doesn't love a little romance, I guess? I don't know. It's one of those things like when they have those new adult book covers, like the romance ones, and they're like, they look like bodice rippers, right? They look like romance novels, and it always cracks me up because I'm like, I would not, like, that's something, if I were to read that, it would be a Bree is spending a day with junk food book, not a, oh my God, I'm waiting for the next installment. But that's just me. That's totally my taste. And I guess, I mean, in fairness, I really liked Sherilyn Kenyon when I was like 14, 15. And her stuff is definitely bodice rippery. Yeah, I need to actually read. I have Caliban's War, and I've had Caliban's War for a long time. And I really should finish it. Oh, I Hate Fairyland by Scotty Young is fantastic. It reminds me a lot of like Kat Lewentes, the girl who circumnavigated fairyland in a ship of her own making, but with more jaded stuff, more violence, and cursing. It's really, I've liked it a lot so far. The art reminds me of the Fairly Odd Parents, if anybody watched Nickelodeon back in like the late 90s, early 2000s, which just makes me smile even more. Like the green hair and the oversaturated colors and stuff like that. Like the very clearly cartoony style. I read the first one at my grandparents' house, and my uncle was there, and he was like really surprised that there would be a fairy story with people like hacking each other's heads off. My uncle's very nice. He's a very nice man. He teaches Sunday school. Um, but yeah, I really liked it. I have to pick up the second. I think maybe the third is even out. I don't know. I haven't been to my comic shop in a couple weeks. I should go and pick up my bin. It's just been so cold. I haven't wanted to leave my apartment, really. I mean, when the wind chill is -40, it's like, ugh. And I forgot my hat when I went into work the other day. I thought my ears were going to fall off. I don't know. So I think that's about it for what I'm going to do for this time. If you're interested in joining me next time, you should let me know because I think this would be a lot of fun. Um, I'll be doing an announcement for the Robert Jackson Bennett live show. His book is City of Stairs and his new one is City of Blades. That's going to be a lot of fun. I'm going to be there. Thomas is going to be there. Brock, Ottavio. And his books have been really interesting so far. I've liked the first one, City of Stairs. I'm expecting the new one, City of Blades, to be showing up in the mail like any day now. So yeah, I'm gonna sign out. Thank you guys for joining me. It made it really fun. And I'll see you next time. Bye.